fantastic co-hosts with me today. So I'm Devin Waugh, the instruction librarian for NC Live, and I have Sophie Hollis here, our community engagement librarian.
Hey everyone.
All right. And so this is introducing the revamped NC Live usage stats portal, benchmarking, marketing, and reporting made easy. We are so excited to share this with you. It has been a labor of love from Daniel Whitehead, our web and database development librarian, in the last several months. And in this particular session today, we want to make sure that you are able to navigate the new usage stats portal, understand how to view key metrics and trends, use benchmarking tools such as our peer comparison tool, as well as our ability to use the graphing feature to compare your library's usage with peer institutions, and then be able to apply some of those insights, those initial understandings of what your top resources are, what are some resources that you don't have as much usage of, to really be able to strengthen your reporting, marketing, and planning for your library. Um, this is also something that most library consortia in the US do not have a feature like this, where they're able to compile all of these usage statistics from the resources they provide in one place. So we're really lucky to have Daniel be able to not only maintain this tool, but revamp it and add some cool new features. Just a question for the chat before we get into the new portal. How often do you gather usage stats for your library? Is it on an annual basis, quarterly, monthly, weekly? Feel free to introduce yourself and share in the chat. Great. So we have some folks saying monthly. We have others saying once a year. Shannon sharing that you were gathering monthly, but then realized we weren't using them. Yeah. And then Kathy sharing monthly to report to county admin and trustees. Yeah. And our usage statistics come out in the middle of the following month just because it takes a little bit of time to gather the data from our vendors and then ingest it into the stats portal. Amanda sharing annually, but we need a proactive plan for using them more often. Awesome. That's why we're here to help. Um, So what's changed? Just an overview. Um, when you log in with your library on our website, it'll show you the top 5 most used resources from the latest usage report. So you get that immediate summary at the top. We have a new peer library comparison feature where when you check that feature, it gives you automatic peers. You can add in different ones. So if you, let's say, are at a community college near Charlotte and you want to compare with Central Piedmont Community College or some neighboring Rowan Cabarrus Community College, you can pick peers as well. And then we have this fantastic graphing feature that allows you to see change over time, which is nice because it kind of helps your eyes rest after seeing all the different numbers and tables. And you can use it to make something more visually appealing, potentially include it in those reports to county admin or trustees. Um, One thing that we've added is your report will show the NC Live primary metric for that resource. Most of the time, it's going to be full text views. There are a few exceptions for certain resources, but that is something where we kind of were able to take a look and set here is the metric. There's so many different ones that vendors can pull into their resources, whether it's searches or views. And we're able to say, like, this is the data point that you'll kind of want to be looking for with change over time. And then we've added a lot of support links on the left side. So data definitions for all of the metrics that we're using in these tables, um, the link to the graphing feature, as well as the ability to go to vendors' admin portals to gather more data that way. So with that, the first thing that you do want to do is make sure when you're on our homepage is to log in with your library. For some of our libraries, especially our academic libraries that typically aren't logging into the NC Live website, that's just something to remember beforehand. Otherwise, it won't show you your top five resources. Um, and then once you're in, you'll see your top five resources like this. So this is an example for Buncombe County Public Library for November. Their top five are Transparent Language, ProQuest Central, The Washington Post, Morning Star, and Heritage Quest. Um, and so I'll open up my view and just show in just a second. But I do want to summarize with these screenshots. So you also have this ability to do a peer report. So if I said, okay, Buncombe County Public Libraries, who are my peers to look at, particularly for usage of Novelist Plus? Um, I can see that it auto-populates Cabarrus County Public Library, Gaston County, New Hanover County, and Union County. Um, and then I can click View Table, and I'm able to see the usage for Novelist and how it compares across institutions for November. And I'm able to see that Union County Public Library has higher use of Novelist compared to Buncombe County Public Libraries and some other peers that are automatically added. So that's one way that you can take that peer comparison feature and quickly use it to figure out kind of how your library is mapping on to similar libraries and where you might have high usage, where others don't, and vice versa. Um, the graphing feature is great because then you can view change over time. This is a view of Novelist Plus usage for Wake County Public Libraries last year. So you can see there was high usage around January. Um, Things get a little bit lower, and then they pick back up again around summer reading, which makes sense. And then things pick back up again as more titles are getting published in the fall around the holiday season. So that NC Live primary metric, as I mentioned, this is kind of what we've selected as the data point to look at for the resource. For data axle reference solutions, it's going to be searches. And then for Novelist Plus, it's the abstract plus views. The reason for that is those particular resources count um, the full text views differently than others do. And so this is why we've kind of picked out from the data the ones that make a little bit more sense um, given the context of the resource. On the left-hand side, you're going to see those support links that I mentioned. There's a red box that I've included on the slide around data definitions, the link for that. That's where you can find the breakdown of like what are these data points and how they're being counted across different resources in the NC Live collection. You can see our FAQ page, and then you can see the get statistics from vendors link to head to any admin portals that make sense for your library. We're going to head into the view. So I am going to, there we go. So I'm logged in as NC State right now. Can everybody see my screen all right? Okay, great. Um, and you can see the top five resources for December because we have that data now. And then I can do a couple of different things. I'm going to show you the graphs feature first because I think that that can be really interesting for your library. So I'm going to add in, let's say I want to look at CINAHL and I want to see what usage looks like for this nursing resource between January to February or December of last year. So for just 2025, I can see the usage for CINAHL that really grew around the fall semester and then went back down again. Now, let me take a look at peer comparison. Let's say I wanted to add in some peers. I can click View Graph, And I can see here, let me zoom in so that you can see um, what the CINAHL usage looks like for these libraries and how it compares. Now, it would make sense for UNC to have higher usage of CINAHL because they have a nursing program compared to NC State or even UNC Charlotte. But I can change this as well. Like, let's say I wanted to look at um, Social Explorer as a resource. I can click View Graph, and it's showing peer usage. And I can see here really high usage from UNC Chapel Hill. They use it across a lot of their degree programs. They have a city planning master's. And then I can see the usage looking different for the other peer institutions. Now, I can also take a look at community of interest usage. So let's say I wanted to see the usage across the UNC system for a particular resource. Um, let's say I wanted to look at ProQuest Central. I could take a look at ProQuest Central um, and view that graph and see for ProQuest Central obvious peaks around the semester and then dips over the summer. Um, but this can also be changed. Like if I wanted to look with our public libraries and change it to a resource like, let's see here, I'm going to go with Data Axle, reference solutions. I can see usage as being particularly high for public libraries with Data Axle usage around the beginning of the school year, so around August, September, October, and then interestingly enough, around April. I wonder why that is March into April. Um, but that's how you can view change over time, and you can even compare, let's see, if I wanted to look at consortial usage, I could do the same thing. I'm going to jump back into the usage reports feature so that you all can see that it's not just the graph as the option, but you can also look at a table view. So if I wanted to look at all of our resources, NC Live primary metric, and maybe I wanted to look at grouping by vendor, and I wanted to do a report for the fall semester for usage, I can use my start date, end date, and then I can click View Table to see that table view, or I can download it as a spreadsheet for later. And then I'm able to see that spreadsheet that I can use, and I can play around with the tables. I can create some graphs in Excel or Google Sheets and then sort of take it from there. With the data definitions section, this is where you're going to get more detailed information on our data definitions as well as the ones from the vendors. So you can see here what um, Alexander Street Press is classifying as full text views, which are total item requests, and then more for each vendor here, and especially for individual resources. So um, with Learning Express Library being our test prep resource, the primary focus for that tool is going to be using it for sessions and then total number of resources. And then I can look through and see for each one what's available. You can see on our Get Statistics from Vendors page the contact support emails for our vendors. If you want to set up an individual institutional level admin account for your library, so let's say you want to go and create an admin account for transparent language, that will allow you to see even more granular data. So with transparent language, it would allow you to see what languages are most popular with your users at your library, as well as time spent in the resource. And that's just not going to be available in our usage stats portal because we're doing a high level summary of the data that we're getting from vendors. But if you want to get more in the weeds and look at specific resources, you'll want to reach out to these support emails and get admin accounts set up. Your library also might already have an admin account for these resources. So just check, and they're always able to help you with recovering account information if needed. And then our usage stats FAQ page allows you to see a little bit more detail related to usage and any anomalies that come up with the data, which can happen from time to time. Now, heading back into our slides. So as I mentioned, we have the NC Live primary metric. So that allows you to kind of take some of the guesswork out of determining like what data points you should focus on. As I mentioned, most of the time it's going to be full text views for um, the NC Live primary metric, and then some exceptions are searches for data axle reference solutions and the historic newspapers collection and Novelist Plus. Their primary metric is abstracts plus views um, as our special cases. Just a couple of things to look for. So, um, one thing that you can do with when you've downloaded the usage report as a spreadsheet is sort the views by high to low so that you can see what are your lowest used resources as they're relevant to your institution. So let's say you're at an academic library and you're not necessarily using just for kids the streaming video collection. That's a maybe a low use resource for your library that kind of makes sense because it's not fitting in with the curriculum that you have at your institution. But that does allow you to see kind of where your usage might be low with certain resources and kind of think through over the next year how to make a plan of increasing usage or tying it in with certain departments or priorities on campus or in your broader community. The same logic goes for public libraries, kind of looking at who are your community partners, what programs are you prioritizing, and really being able to drill down what are some resources that you can integrate into those programs. An example that we've seen across our member libraries is um, language learning circles, ESL support for patrons, and then kind of pulling in a resource like Transparent Language, which has a lot of ESL courses that are self-paced in the platform. Um, and then Sophie's going to take it away with looking at peers.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. Thank you all for being here today. As Devin said, I'm Sophie Hollis. I'm the Community Engagement Librarian at NC Live. I know many of you participants in the room, partly from the Maximize program, which I do. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about looking at your data in context, because that is a big part of the Maximize program and what I do. So hopefully this can help you get another sense of what to do with this data now that you can actually see it a little bit more readily. So a question I get a lot is like, how do you know if your usage is high or low? Like, is this a good number? And like, that's a fair question. And also like, how do you decide which resources to promote? So a good way, as you can tell from the slide, is to look at your peers and see what they're up to. So Devin just showed this feature a little bit more in depth. I also was logged in on campus as NC State, so that's why populated in the library peer bar there, you'll see Chapel Hill and Charlotte as the two peers suggested for NC State. But I've circled in red that peer report button. So that's the same thing that Devin showed you earlier. And the way that we determine who a peer library is basically with their full-time enrollment data or their service population if you're a public library. So this data is publicly available. You are welcome to look it up if you're curious about who is similar in size to you. For example, the state library releases service population data for the public libraries, I think once a year. So if you are just curious about the whole list, that's something that you can find online. But we've already gone through that whole list and kind of suggested peers around your library based on that size. So that will give you a sense of your peers by size, which is kind of the truest way to see if particular resources are being used a lot or not. So the peer report will automatically select these two peers for you, but again, as Devin said, you can actually change them if you're interested in looking at other options. So on the next slide, we have an example. Um, and I'm going to pick on Alamance Community College because they are alphabetically first. But here you can kind of see like this was some data. I think this was last year's data. Here are a couple of peers, two that are slightly smaller and two that are slightly bigger than Alamance based on their FTE. And usually that's what I look for when I'm doing the maximize reports is like maybe go like one that's a little smaller. And then actually I like to do one that's smaller, the closest size peer, and then actually one that's like a little bit bigger. And I call this like an aspirational peer. So like, if you had like a usage level to shoot for potentially is like a library that's like a little bit bigger than yours. So this is just to kind of show you like what we're looking at behind the scenes. Other factors that might be worth considering as you're thinking about your peers are library staff size, and as Devin mentioned, popular academic programs if you're an academic library. Of course, you're going to be able to do more in promoting your e-resources and using them if you have a bigger staff. But we don't always have super accurate data on staff size, and so I don't consider that very much unless I know for sure what the different libraries are looking like at that point. Academic programs will actually kind of emerge in a later slide, so I'll talk about that a little bit more. Some people also like to consider geography. That one's kind of interesting, but I would say that if you're looking for an accurate measure of like, am I using this resource enough or like a lot? Size tends to kind of be a better way to look at it because obviously there's tons of diversity in libraries within a single geographic location. So I guess you can switch it if you're interested in that. It is cool to look at, but I would not recommend that for like context gathering. Um, yes. So just as an example, I think if we can go to the next slide. Yes. Okay. So this is a fake table of data to kind of show you what I do in the Maximize reports that you can copy if you're interested to get a sense of where your library is situated among your peers. So you can see here that in the blue column, this would be the library that I'm doing the report for. So this would be your library. And I went ahead and pulled all of the resource usage for the resources. But you'll notice in the peer columns, peers 1 through 3, there are several blank cells, and that is because I have only pulled the top 5 resources for each of those peers. And folks who have done the Maximize with me before will be like, yes, I recognize this. This looks very familiar. So the purpose of only doing the top 5 of each of the peers is to show you what's popular in your peer group, and then also to kind of show you some interesting outliers. So for example, you can see ABI Inform in this fake example is a popular resource across all of these libraries. So if your usage is in line with your peers, you can be like, great, I'm on track. Everything's looking good there. Same with looks like education database and health and medical collection in this example, strong across all these peers. These are also the same types of library, I should reiterate. So like this is probably an academic library. So yeah, that's just to be clear, like that's probably why a lot of these align. But then you have some of these examples like CQ Researcher and Sears Issues Researcher, which are similar. And it looks like peer library number 3 uses CQ Researcher a ton, and as does your library. But Sears Issues Researcher, a different peer, uses a lot. They don't seem to be using CQ Researcher very much. And it looks like your library falls on the CQ Researcher side. So those are kind of, since they're similar resources, that kind of explains why those are falling into different cells. But then you have something like this Films on Demand line where peer library number 1 is using it a ton, and your library is using it some, but not quite to the level of peer number 1. And so what this table can kind of help you do is think about who do I know at that library that I can email or reach out to and say like, what the heck are you guys doing with Films on Demand that's working so well? So this is supposed to kind of help you see like who is doing great promotion of some kind of a particular resource that's in my peer group that I could reach out to and figure out what they're doing, because maybe that would work in my context as well. And of course, NC Live is always happy to help facilitate connections between libraries. So if you need some help with that, reaching out to a peer, we're happy to help. So yeah, this is a great way, I think, to kind of zoom in on which resources are worth your time to think about boosting your usage. So I think we can go to the next slide. I just wanted to move into some concrete examples of what you can do once you have this data. So I want to kind of open it up to the chat for 1 second. Um, I think, and Devin, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we asked you to pull this earlier. Is that true?
Yeah, we gave you a little bit of homework when I sent out the logistics email yesterday. It's totally okay if you didn't get a chance to do it, but I'm curious if anybody logged in with their library and found their top 5 resources.
And I'm expecting that it's going to take you a minute to type them out. So I'll give you a second.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to send your top five literally, please tell us like if you were able to look at them, were you surprised by your top five?
hmm And if you didn't get a chance to look at them and you want to do that after this webinar, totally fine. Um,
I'm
yeah,
also
I think,
gonna, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
I'm about to send the link to the data dashboard if anyone wants to look
That would
right
be
this
great.
second. If you're on campus, you should already be logged in or at your physical library. I think it will default to December, but you're also, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it can be November, December, doesn't really matter. All right. I see a
Nice.
transparent language shout out in the chat. Love it. Deborah, are you coming from an academic or a public library?
Public
Yeah,
library, gotcha.
could have guessed, but that's great.
Oh, it's your number one NC Live resource. I'd be so curious if you all have created an account with their admin portal and seen like what specific languages are popular with your users. Um, because yeah, it's just very interesting, like the level of reporting that they have on their end as well.
Mhm. Yeah, speaking of admin portals, well, let's see in the chat. Data Axle, one of the top, but the person, Kate, was at the LEAF training, so that makes sense. Awesome. Thanks for
Awesome.
doing the LEAF program too. That's great.
Oh, yeah. And Deborah sharing in the chat, Onslow County is home to a large military population, military base. That makes sense.
Hmm. Yep. And for sure, Amanda, ProQuest Central, it's big for a lot of our libraries as well. So that
hmm
makes total sense. Um, yeah, some of the ones I shared in the table before, typically I'll break down the individual databases in ProQuest Central to kind of help you see what academic programs might be using them more than others for promotional purposes. So that might be interesting to look at as well.
And Kate sharing Heritage Quest was another top one for us, being at a
Oh,
public
nice.
library.
Yeah,
Awesome. And then ProQuest Central, Angela sharing at an academic library. Great.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of these are looking really expected from my
hmm
vantage point of looking at our whole consortium. So, um, yes, I'm seeing a few more resources loading in here. ProQuest Research Library, the Agriculture and Environmental Science Collection. Love to see a shout out for that one because I feel like it's very specific to a few schools, so that's awesome. International News Stream, we see a lot. ABI Inform, of course. Oh yeah, here we go. All kinds of resources coming in the chat. Um, Yeah, Shannon also added that the Ag and Environmental Science database is sort of for a small department. So I hope that means that they are a really engaged department, like they just are plugged in with the library and know where to get their resources. So that's great.
Yeah, it could be because it's alphabetically first. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Mhm. That's also a good point. Well,
We
what
have
about
a,
ABI Inform though? Like, well,
yeah,
that one also gets
yeah.
used a lot, but yeah. Mhm.
ABI Inform, like Cinol, is not a descriptive name of what the database offers at all, but big fan of ABI Inform for business research.
Mhm.
Nice. Well, thank you all for pulling up that data and taking a look.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Perfect.
But this is not our last interaction, so keep paying attention. So talking about setting goals, Devin already asked you how often you're checking your usage data. We recommend checking it on a regular basis. So whether that is quarterly, maybe you don't need it as often, or monthly, as the usage statistics come out on the portal. Just making a habit of it, because I think once you start to notice changes, that's kind of when you can get clues about what's going on, what's being used. And then in terms of promotion, people are often ask me like how to promote e-resources. Actually, ask both of us a lot. But it's more about promoting a couple of specific things. Tends to work a little bit better than trying to promote all the e-resources you have in general. Maybe this sounds pretty intuitive, but it can just be helpful to pick like one or two things that to really focus on, go all in connecting with patrons that use those resources or would use those resources. Also to not exhaust yourself and stretch yourself too thin. So in doing that, one of the main tenets of the Maximize program is trying to identify existing programs and services at your library that would connect with a specific e-resource. So I typically look at popular academic programs or clubs, things specific to that geographic location or region, the type of library, like if you're a public library, you might be working with different community partners. So just thinking about what are some of the things that you're already doing with the patrons that you serve, and how could their experience at the library be enhanced or supported by a particular e-resource. And once you kind of have those resources that you want to focus on and you kind of know who you want to target, we have so many promotional materials. What you could do in theory is, learn everything there is to learn about data axle, put the instructions and the graphics in like a beautiful design and print that out and hand it out to people. And we're trying to save you all that work. You can just start at the printed out stage because we already know these resources really well. And so we've tried to put information onto these like flyers and bookmarks, social media posts for you, and then you can just take them. And many of them are customizable, so you can actually change them to fit your library if you're interested in doing that. That kind of saves you some time. So I also wanted to give you some background information as you're looking at your own that you saved, that you put in the chat. Here are the top resources for each community for 2025. So look at these, and if you don't know one of these resources for your community, that might be a good place to start because your peers overall in that type of library are using it a lot. So some of these that already came up in the chat, the ABI Inform Business Collection is a big one. We see health and medical across many of our academic libraries. It's like academic articles on healthcare. Ebooks, both of our ebook collections are huge in our academic libraries. And then in the public libraries, I was interested to see that Novelist Plus got beat out by Data Axle this year. So neck and neck competition. So if you're not super familiar with our business resources, that's also a really great area to start learning about some of what we offer. And then one that surprised me last year that is back second year in a row is Serious Issues Researcher as a great homework help resource. And it's being used a lot in the public libraries. So we love to see that. So yeah, you can also pull this data in our usage statistics portal. If you do the whole consortium report, you can see this as well.
I'm loving seeing Social Explorer as a top three resource for the community colleges. I feel like
Same.
uh it's that's an intriguing fit in the top three.
Yeah, I know. I love this. It's being used and it's pretty high in some of the other ones as well, just maybe not top three, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. If y'all don't know about Social Explorer, please check it out. Okay, so another question. Now that you've seen some of the ones that are showing up in your communities, what are some resources that you're excited to prioritize promotion for in the next couple months? I put some suggestions here because these are ones that come up a lot when I do Maximize reports. So transparent language, as someone has already pointed out, very popular in a lot of public libraries. there's also lots of great academic applications for it. Films on demand, just for kids, also access video on demand. All of these streaming video resources are great to promote. Data Axle, Social Explorer, we just talked about. Sears Issues Researcher, we also talked about. And then our test prep resources, Learning Express Library, and Prep Step Academic. So go ahead and sound off in the chat if any of these are appealing to you. Like, what are you thinking about promoting this spring? I'm going to give everyone a minute because I know that you're so excited about all these resources. It's just typing them all out is going to take a while. Okay, great. Here we go. Here we go. Actually, that was what was happening. So love to see this. Um, yes. Okay. So Amanda said talking about apps that can be downloaded so students can leverage their phones for accessing more resources. So true. Yes, we have the new is it the ebook central app?
Yes.
Yes. So
eBook Central has an app that some of our libraries have started migrating to. Um, if you want to sign up to schedule a migration, I'll just include the link for that in the follow-up email that I'll send for this webinar. We'll eventually kind of find a time this year where I think through Clarivate, they'll just migrate all of our member libraries to the app. This is in replacement of using Adobe Digital Editions to read ebooks offline. With the ebook central app, it just allows for like a more seamless use on a mobile device.
yeah, thank you for sharing that, Devin.
Yeah.
Um, I'm noticing a lot of business resources coming up with some Leaf folks in the chat, so that's awesome. Business resources are definitely a great one that once they're introduced to particular communities, especially, just really take off in usage. So that's a really great goal. Um, I see Jesse talking about a public library that doesn't seem like they're using Serious Issues Researcher very much, so that's a good one to focus on. Thank you for using my example. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I also see Gretchen talking about wanting to promote Heritage Quest because of America 250. What a great tie-in. It's a good idea. Sorry, were you
Yeah,
going to
I
say
would
something?
also share the historic newspapers collection. That is a digitized collection with a lot of county newspapers from Wilson Library, UNC. The collection spans from, I want to say something like 1760 up until 1999. So you'll actually find some Revolutionary War era newspapers in that collection as well.
Mhm.
Oh,
Awesome.
great. That's so good to hear.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. These sound like great goals. Love to see our resources being promoted. So
Yeah.
I think I have just a couple more things to cover here. Just kind of some general marketing support to kind of help you reach these goals and promote your resources. So we can go to the next slide. So general strategies, this is kind of related to what we've been saying this whole time, but really look at your top programs and the specific populations that you serve at your library. So we've got resources that match really well with lots of different communities. And so if you're already doing, for example, a lot of like outreach with Spanish speaking patrons at your library, we've got transparent language. Just put that right into what you're already doing. You've already laid the infrastructure. We also have lots of flyers that list resources by programs and communities. So if you don't really know, like, oh, okay, like what are good resources like for veterans, like in Onslow County, that's actually one that we're going to post starting in February. So keep your eyes open. But that's one that will just list like they might be interested in these resources. And so maybe you hadn't thought about that in this particular context. So check the promotional materials page for that and other specific population kind of one pagers. Of course, doing outreach to your faculty and campus entities if you're an academic library. Faculty are usually the number one influencer when it comes to using e-resources at your academic library. So you just got to keep reintroducing yourself to faculty, as you all know, and remind them that these things exist. We've got lots of specific recommendations about that in some of our previous webinars and also in our Maximize program. So I'll skip down to that one. Sign up for the Maximize program. If you want us, aka me, to come up with recommendations and ideas based on your usage data, all you have to do is fill out the form at that link and I'll use what you put in the form to create a custom report. And then we meet one-on-one and go over those recommendations. And it's a totally free service. The only limitation is if your library has done it in the last year, then I can't do another one for you until it's been a year, just to give everyone a chance to do it. But yeah, that's a great way to kind of get some ideas. And then, of course, like we mentioned, if you see your peer libraries are really using a resource a lot, connect with them, figure out what they're doing that's working, because in all likelihood, it could probably work in your context as well.
I would also add for like a public library context, it's not necessarily faculty and campus departments, but thinking through county entities that could use NC Live resources. So Data Axle being a popular tool for our public libraries, uh, sharing it with chambers of commerce, with county managers, with economic development agencies in your area, or any startup incubator programs in your region. That can be great because it's like connecting these resources with folks who aren't working in a library context or maybe aren't going to their public library and realizing that they have these databases with their library card.
Mhm.
Just another example.
Yeah, thank you. That for sure. That's a really great idea. So just reiterating resources by audience. Here are some of the ones that we already have on our materials page, which is also linked there below. And here's the teaser for the veterans one. There's actually going to be several coming out in February, so please visit that page. And we have a subject filter on our promotional materials page, so you can filter by kind of the area that you're looking for. So the other thing that I would recommend using on our promotional materials page is filtering by resource. So if you have those one or two resources that you know you want to promote over the next couple of months, you can actually click that resource on our page and it will show you everything that we have for it so that you can really target with those materials. So that's an easy feature of that page as well. And just to kind of give you a general overview of this page, if you're not familiar with it, this is where we put all of our promotional materials that you can either print out, you can customize them and then print them out, you can post digital versions. You are welcome to do with these materials whatever is helpful for you to promote the e-resources. Some of these come from our vendors, and so if you download those, sometimes they'll have like you edit in, you put in your library name. Sometimes you can print them for free. So you can see at the bottom of the screen, it has like a little shopping cart. It says 6 packs in your order. If a shopping cart icon, oh, thanks, Devin, appears over the material, you can add it to your cart like you're online shopping and then enter the amount that you want. And then the vendor will actually ship it to your library completely for free. So yes, Devin's just selected the order from vendors feature and you'll see there's shopping carts appearing over these. You can put how many you want, tell you how many you're getting, and then they'll appear in your cart. Yes. So if you like to online shop, this is a great way to help reach those e-resource promotion goals in like 30 seconds. And again, totally free, no shipping costs, like they just arrive at your door. And I think we can go ahead and head back to the slides when you have a second. Just wanted to make sure everyone knows where that lives. And then in general, some things I would recommend if you're not already doing them are number one, to sign up for our marketing newsletter. That's where I send out all of the new promotional materials that come out in a particular month. So from vendors and just from us. So you can adjust your settings on our Join Listservs page on our website. One thing that I'm doing in that newsletter now is trying to feature a resource each month so that if you send out a newsletter like to your patrons or to your faculty, you can actually just copy that exact blurb and the art that's with it, and it will just explain what the resource is. It'll be linked, and then I'll also include promotional materials for that resource if you really want to focus on it. So if it happens to align with one of your promotion goals, perfect, there you go. You don't really have to do anything else. But if you don't know what you want to promote a particular month, that's like an easy thing to copy and reproduce that hopefully will save you some time. And if there's one that you really want me to do, or if there's materials that you really want, please email help@nclive.org, or my email is also listed here, and I can help you get some promotional materials together. So I do take requests. I'll also recommend that you check out our previous marketing webinars on our YouTube channel. We're also planning another e-resources marketing series this spring. So please stay tuned for an announcement about that. We'll have lots of different topics just like last time. So that will be another great set of ideas for promoting e-resources. And finally, we should have a more general e-resources marketing guide coming out this summer. We're very excited about that. We've got a field experience student helping us digest some data from a survey that Devin and I ran about e-resource marketing challenges. So hopefully this can help support everyone even further. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Deborah. I'm glad it's been helpful. One thing that I do want to share is on our mega menu. So right now, the usage reports and usage graphs have the beta in parentheses because we're just kind of moving things over from our production site onto the main NC Live website. So we do have our old usage stats portal here. It will eventually become the new one with a separate link for the graphs. So that's something that you'll notice a change in the next month as we move things over to the new portal. Yeah, awesome. Yay. Any other questions coming in? Great.
Thank you all. I'm also going to put our contact, the help desk contact email in the chat if you need to reach out to us about anything.
Yeah, anytime you have an access issue with a resource or you're seeing some error message, feel free to take a screenshot, copy the link of where you found that issue, and then just reach out to us and we're able to support that Monday through Friday.